Welcome to the Sports Lounge, edition 81, NFL Preview Edition, 1 week after the College Edition, the Pro Edition. I'm Travis Kriens, Shane Koob from the big city, Marcus Traxler, Nike's own, and Oregon Duck. Actually, you're the mascot. A lot of people don't know that. Charlie Hildebrand. Gentlemen, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I always like your work in that commercial with Lee Corso.
I do what I can. That's why I have such large arms. I have to do all those push-ups all the time, and that's why they needed they changed the mascot so I could actually fit in the costume.
College football preview last week. We'll get to the college games from yesterday later in the show. But our big NFL preview, I was excited for college football. Had a couple of good games there yesterday. I was excited for the preview. Not as excited for the NFL. I'm excited for the Vikings season more than I have been in probably 4 or 5 years. But the NFL as a whole, not real excited. It seems like you got Seattle and San Francisco and Green Bay. You kind of got the same teams in the mix in the NFC. You got New England and Denver over there in the AFC, and then everybody else. We'll see what happens. Do you feel the same way, or are you always pumped up for the NFL season? Shane Koob, we'll start with you.
I am always ready for the NFL season, especially like you said, with the Vikings even more so than just the NFL as a whole. Like they have the radio commercials talking about going back to the elements with the deep voice, and I get some goosebumps going. So, I don't get that with like going into a twin season or something like that. So, the NFL is special because football is exciting. It's America's favorite sport. Obviously, the NFL is a big deal. So yeah, I'm ready for the NFL. I like watching the best players play against each other, and it seems like in the NFL there's more of a crapshoot on who's going to be the best team. There are the better teams, like you've listed, but like last year, not many people had Seattle going all the way. But
yeah, those surprise teams like Carolina, Kansas City, things like that. Marcus Traxler, are you pumped?
I'm a lot like you. I think maybe you rubbed off on me, and I'm just not as excited about the NFL season as a whole. I am excited about the Vikings. I'm curious. I think Matt Castle will play pretty well compared to Ponder last year.
Oh boy!
And I think we're going to see Bridgewater before too long, because the Vikings probably will get off to a terrible start, and I hope that pushes them to put in Bridgewater, because I've liked what I've seen out of him so far, and I think it would be most beneficial for them to play him as soon as possible. Because he looks good, because he seems to have a grasp of the offense. For the NFL as a whole, I'm most interested in which good teams from last year will be bad and which bad teams from last year will be good. That seems to be what happens in the NFL. You're going to have 2 teams that finished last season in their division probably win their division this year. So I think I enjoy sort of seeking those teams out, trying to pinpoint which teams will be good. I'm not real set on any of those picks, but I'm very interested. That being said, I think we're going to see either Seahawks, 49ers, Packers, and Broncos, Patriots in that Super Bowl.
Charlie Hildebrand.
I mean, I think I'm kind of in the same boat as Traxler and Kriens. I'm always more excited for college football than pro football. I grew up as a college football guy. And as a Nebraska fan, when they win every game by 50 points when you're in middle school, it's easy to be a college football guy. But, I mean, I'm still looking forward to it. I enjoy the NFL. For me, it's usually around week 4, week 5. There's some game, like a Sunday night game, where both teams have played well, and it's not all just based off last year. But both teams have played well and are playing each other, and I'll think, oh, wow, that looks like a pretty fun game, and that's kind of when I get more into it again after a couple, 2 or 3 or 4 weeks.
Marcus mentioned the surprise teams, the last place teams finishing first, and some surprise teams from last year. If you had to pinpoint a couple of those teams, I'm kind of looking towards Atlanta. I was off of them last year because they won a lot of close games 2 years ago. I said that probably doesn't keep up. They did have some injuries, so that did not help. This year I'm back on Atlanta. I think I like Atlanta to at least to make the playoffs here. Didn't see Kansas City things coming. Andy Reid must be a god there, Mr. Jello Man himself, or Kool-Aid Man himself. So we'll see if Kansas City that continues. Carolina, I don't know anybody that thinks that's going to happen again. So Marcus, any teams from last to first? I like Houston to make the playoffs. So I'll put that out there for my surprise. Anyone else you like?
I think Houston will be better. They could have 9 wins. I'm not sure they're going to be the division champs just because I think the Colts are going to take care of that division pretty easily. I don't know. That NFC East is so up for grabs. So I think a lot of people are expecting the Giants to be bad. I think there's a potential that they will be. Unfortunately, I think Washington is probably a team that if they get their ducks in a row could be a title contender. And, I mean, the Cowboys' defense is so bad that will be hilarious to watch this year. But if they're able to just outscore teams, that might help them. So I also look at that AFC North. I'm not sold on the Bengals again this year. And so I feel like either Pittsburgh finished third in that division last year, correct?
They did.
Second.
Oh, they were tied. They were tied with Baltimore at 8-8.
Yep.
Either made the playoffs.
So not a team that was terribly awful. I mean, that's a defense that's gotten very old very quickly. You look at their safeties. Do they still have Taylor? I know they have Palomalu.
Ike Taylor?
Ike Taylor. Do they still have Ike Taylor?
So.
Yeah. I mean, so you got 2 safeties that are pretty old. And, I mean, if they can bring on these guys like the Steelers usually do, where all of a sudden they have 3 guys that are either first or second year players, and like, holy crap, they're all pros already, because the Steelers seem to do that quite a bit, then I think they'll be okay. And contract year for Roethlisberger, I expect him to have a good season.
Ike Taylor kind of is there an Ike Taylor-John Thune rivalry with the forehead department here, or what's going on?
His forehead doesn't stick out to me, so I'm not able to
Google Ike Taylor,
okay,
and have some fun there.
I'm sure somebody's already put a side-by-side of those two together, so I'll just find that.
All right. Let's go AFC, NFC. Is there a conference that you see definitely stronger than the other?
I get the sense the NFC is stronger just because the NFC West looked so good last year. Now, this is the problem for me. Is it so? I mean, I always base things off last year, and there will be all sorts of changes, but I get the sense that the NFC is better than the AFC at this point in the year.
I think the NFC is better because you just look at the NFC North between Green Bay, Chicago. I don't know about Detroit, but then you look at the NFC West. You've got 3 teams that were very good last year. I expect those same 3 teams to be good, and I think St. Louis is going to struggle. And then I think the South will have at least 2 good teams, whether that's New Orleans will be very good, and whether that's Atlanta or Carolina or potentially even Tampa Bay if they can somehow adapt to Lovie Smith very quickly. I think those are competitive divisions I'm eager to see. I mean, the NFC East will be competitive even if all the teams are 8-8. So I think we'll be in for a very good NFC season. The AFC, a couple divisions there that I think are just going to be a disaster. So I would take the NFC.
Yep. Mr. Koob, you feel the same?
Yeah, I do. The NFC, I mean, you can look at all the divisions in the NFC, and there's at least a couple teams in each division that you could logically say could make the playoffs, where the AFC, like, you look at the AFC North, and it's like, yeah, I mean, you got the Ravens in there, yeah, they won the Super Bowl, but they're not. The Ravens just never seemed like they're really an impressive team to me ever, no matter what they're doing. Outside of the Patriots and the Broncos, there's really nobody that really stands out. I think like in the NFC with Packers and Seahawks and Niners, and I think NFC is way deeper than the AFC.
And I kind of get the sense that, like, with the quarterbacks, because we all know quarterback's the most important position.
Well,
but, like, other than Andrew Luck,
explain yourself here.
Yeah, I know. I'm going way out on a limb saying that quarterbacks are the most important spot. But it seems to me that, like, in the AFC, other than Andrew Luck, like, every quarterback's really old or not very good, and the NFC has all the young, talented, up and coming, or really established quarterbacks.
Well, and I've been listening to, I know this is against Sports Lounge rules, but I've been listening to some competing podcasts.
Okay.
Especially the Grant.
We'll accept that.
And they've pointed out that, I mean, you look at Manning, you look at Brady. I mean, those are the two big ones stand out. Those guys are not getting any younger. Manning is what, 37, 38? Yeah. Brady is just a few years younger. And at some point, you can only have so many. I mean, Romo, you can only have so many back surgeries until you're just done. You know, there comes a point in time where you just stop being a good quarterback. And unfortunately, Peyton Manning, he's had a few neck surgeries. The decline of these quarterbacks, Manning and Brady, I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but when it does, it'll hit us like a ton of bricks, even though we should see it coming. And I think that will be, unfortunately, entertaining to see when it does happen. That, I mean, everybody's been counting on the Broncos and the Patriots to be very good, and if their quarterback is not any good, both those teams are screwed. And we all know that. I think we're just kind of insulating ourselves from that truth.
I think Tom Brady.
I don't think. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think Tom Brady's decline will be more of a hill. I think Manning's will be more of a cliff.
Yep.
I get the sense that the declines are kind of, they will not be the Michael Jordan or the Derek Jeter farewell party. We're all going to see him go. They will be the more Troy Aikman, Steve Young, and like that, they're gone.
It'll be the Brett Favre getting killed by Corey Wooten on an icy Minneapolis Monday night, and that'll be the end of it.
So these declines are going to come due to injury. Is this right?
I feel like that's probably going to happen.
I don't think Brady's will. That's why I think his will be more of a slope.
Gradual decline.
Yes.
We saw a little bit of a decline last year. Brady was, if you want to talk fantasy, he was in that top 4 or 5. It'd be nice to have him on your team. Last year, he wasn't any good. He was pretty good, but he wasn't like he had been the last 5-6 years. Gronkowski wasn't there. That helps a whole hell of a lot. So Brady kind of took a dip, and Manning probably had the greatest year that any quarterback's ever had. So really nowhere to go but down for Peyton Manning right there.
Well, and I know we're not all fantasy players here, and I don't want to make this whole show about Brady and Manning, but Manning, #1 quarterback fantasy, right? I would say, on your cheat sheets if you're looking at him, everybody's got him #1. Brady, correct. The sheets I'm looking at, not in the top 10, and I was in the Sports Lounge draft. I was in one other draft. He might have been the 8th or 9th quarterback taken, which is something.
Mr. Coop took him.
Yep. Coop took him.
I was looking at him like, hey, he dropped far enough, and I looked at his numbers, and they were decent enough. I don't know what round he was, 6th, 7th, 5th round, whenever it was. But I was like, wow, if you would not have picked him, I probably would have picked him my next pick. So. Well,
that's what I'm saying. You just look at it, and you're like, whoa, he's 4th or 5th round. I don't remember when Coop took him, but he's still there. It just, your jaw kind of drops, and it kind of catches you off guard because however many times Super Bowl MVP, you're not expecting him to be sitting there.
Let's see, Charlie, I'm going to make an analogy here. Tell me if I'm off or tell me if this is spot on. NFC, AFC, we're talking about the quarterbacks and where the power lies. NFC's late 90s WWF, AFC's late 90s WCW.
That's funny. I think that's a pretty good analogy. That the NFC, that's a good analogy. I would also throw in like the 1950s NL and AL when the NL took all the black players first. That the NFC's just they're younger right now and they've got more talent and they look good for the future. While the AFC still got plenty of good players and good teams. I mean, I'm not saying they're terrible. But it seems like all of them are kind of, it's like, oh yeah, they've been good for the last 7 or 8 years. And, and like we've mentioned, that all of them, they've got old quarterbacks. Some of them have got old skill players too, and I think that it will be the NFC. It seemed like the AFC was the better division for about 6 or 7 years, and I think it's going to be an NFC run now, just like the Stone Cold and Rock and Triple H run the WWF had.
If anybody else wants to jump in very quickly, if you had to compare wrestler to quarterback, so if ESPN can do a NFL Live in the middle of June and compare superheroes to players, we'll compare wrestlers to quarterbacks. Peyton Manning. Who would be the Peyton Manning of the late 90s era? I would say it's Hulk Hogan. If he's the top of all time, Peyton Manning, you can make the argument.
All I know is that The Rock is definitely Colin Kaepernick.
Where's Russell Wilson sitting here? Is he The Rock?
I'm going with Kaepernick because they're both good athletes and they both got the arm sleeve tattoo. It's not the deepest comparison in the world, but that's the one I'm going with.
You think Kaepernick might have a potential movie career?
I do. He's great in the commercials. You can tell he's not reading from a script one bit.
Would Aaron Rodgers be the Stone Cold Steve Austin of the deal?
I know Mark Henry is the Jared Lorenzen.
Very good. Very good. Staying in the NFC, give me your list of teams that you would not be surprised to coin the trademark Nathan Stacken term. What teams would you not be surprised in the NFC go to the Super Bowl? Similar to how we did it with the SEC last week, how many teams could come out of that to win it? NFC representatives of the Super Bowl, Charlie. 2, 3, 5, 10?
I will say, let's see. I'd go San Francisco, Seattle, New Orleans. I'm going to throw in Atlanta, and then I would say Green Bay, Philadelphia. I'd go with, for me, 6. That based mostly off last year and before we get all sorts of season-ending injuries. Those would be the 6 I could see making the Super Bowl. With Atlanta kind of iffy because I'm projecting a lot based off what I saw in Hard Knocks.
I'd say 6 as well, but I'd switch out Atlanta for Carolina.
Okay. Do you think
that's interesting because I like Seattle, San Francisco, Green Bay, Chicago. To me, their defense will be better this year, and they're going to be able to score a ton of points.
Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall.
Jeffrey. That's a very good. Even Santonio Holmes is a third receiver. I mean, there's worse options out there. And then whoever comes out of the East, I would say that the Eagles are going to have some prayer, and then I would throw in Carolina and New Orleans.
So you've got about 7 teams or so.
I've got 7. And I mean, there's obviously I would put 3 favorites in there. I'd put San Francisco, Seattle, and Green Bay. So I think Green Bay, unfortunately, is going to have just a monster year. And I think they'll probably be in that 13-3 territory.
I'd go with Seattle, San Francisco, New Orleans, and Green Bay. I'd limit it to 4, and go from there. Probably the at least the top 2, 3 quarterbacks right there. You look at the East. I mean, who the hell knows who's going to win that? We know Dallas will finish 8-8. We know that. Anything else, we don't know. Giants could win 4. They could win 10. Who the hell knows? Start there. Philadelphia, I'm a big fan of that offense. I'm a big fan of anything that's new since the NFL seems to be an bunch of old bastards that don't like anything new. And so Chip Kelly, a big fan of that offense. Hopefully that keeps up. Hopefully LaShawn McCoy can have back-to-back great years and stay healthy. So I hope Philadelphia wins. I hope they do well. Synopsis there on the East. Marcus.
I think it's Philadelphia's to lose. I think they have an adequate defense. I think their offense, I don't think Nick Foles will play as well as he did last year, but if they can just sort of lean on LaShawn McCoy, they should be okay.
I feel like the Eagles are the favorite going in. There's always goofy stuff that happens in the NFC East, but I agree with what's been said already, and I like what Chip Kelly does and what they're doing in Philadelphia. I don't think Nick Foles will be as brutally efficient as he was, where it was, 28 touchdowns and 2 picks or something like that. I think you'll have a good year. It won't be as good, but I think that the Eagles will probably go like 10-6 and win the East.
Yep, I agree with everything. Question for you guys. Which of the top teams would you not be surprised to see have just a really bad year? For me, it's the Niners. I think the 49ers could potentially just have like a really bad year because they got some of the defensive players out the first couple games. But they do have Crabtree back. But I'd see the Niners as one of those, teams where like people expect them to be good and then they end up going 6-10 or something like that.
I don't know what leads me. I think it's because the NFC South is the most volatile division. I think that in the East. I could see the Eagles not doing well. I could see the Saints potentially missing the playoffs. Maybe it's 9-7.
Even with that home field advantage, I think they went 8-0 last year. They did go 8-0 last year.
I mean, we've seen 10-6 miss the playoffs too. So, and I understand that they don't lose at home, but I just think that they're gonna. That's a tough division. I think Atlanta is going to be better. I don't think Carolina will be terrible, although it's a good chance that they finish third. And I'd be curious to see even how our friend Drew Ahman evaluates the Buccaneers because I think that's kind of a crapshoot team this year too. If I just think of the four division leaders, I would say that Philadelphia is probably the most likely, but I just see that division being up for grabs from the start. So if you want me to pick one of the true Super Bowl contenders that might slip, I think it'll be New Orleans.
I'm going to apologize in advance for channeling my inner First Take Skip Bayless, because I do despise that show. And I don't know if I truly believe this will happen. I could see a scenario where Seattle finishes like 7-9, though. If, let's say, Marshawn Lynch is a little banged up and not healthy, their offense doesn't move the ball very well, and the NFL actually calls pass interference and defensive holding like they have in some of these preseason games, forcing to Seattle to just completely alter their pass defense. I think they could. I mean, I don't think they're going to go 2-12, but I think they could struggle and lose a lot of close games if they call it tight like they did. And certainly I hope they don't. I think most people could agree that they don't want to see the 34 penalties called in a game. But if they do that, that would not favor Seattle at all.
I mean, it certainly feels like the rules that they've put in place, whether or not it's going to be tampered back for the regular season, it feels like they were put in place because of the Seahawks, because they took advantage of that in the latter part of last year.
I believe the stat that I heard this preseason, at least going through week 3, is that the only team not to have some sort of a defensive holding, pass interference, something in the secondary called was Seattle. So,
well, so then scratch what I said. Then I throw me in with the Saints or the Eagles. Then I guess, or yeah, I don't know.
So we'll see. I don't expect this unbelievable amount of penalties to continue. I just don't think that's possible. I like Shane's question there. I was wondering, San Francisco, why are people down on San Francisco? Valid reasons, suspensions, Aldon Smith missing half the season. Offense not the greatest. Colin Kaepernick. Does Kaepernick get a pass at all? He's not a very good passer. But playoff time, wins on the road, does that kind of cover everything else that he does that's maybe not so impressive during the regular season?
To an extent, I think it does. If you're that good of a runner and you can force teams to have to prepare for that, you can be a pretty mediocre passer and make up for it, forcing the defenses to change what they want to do on defense. And I think the 49ers, just because I always like comparing things, collegiately to me they're sort of like LSU, where you don't know how things will fit together, but they're so loaded with talent every year that they're going to be good and they're going to be really tough to beat. And if you pick them to do really well, you're going to be right most of the time.
Seattle was 4-2 last year in games decided by 6 points or less, so they were decent. They beat Tampa Bay in overtime. They beat Houston in overtime, so a couple of games they could have very easily lost. They beat Carolina on the road by 5 in a 12-7 thriller of a game, week 1 last year. So it really is, even with the Seattles and the Denvers and whoever else, it's those 4, 5, 6 games that you play that are decided by a possession or less. That decides your season. As we mentioned, 6-10, 10-6, not that much of a difference. What do you make of the stat? I believe it goes back 8 or 9 years since a team has won the Super Bowl and then won a playoff game the next year. Why is that the case? And does Seattle break that string? Mr. Koob.
I don't know why that is. I think maybe getting into a little more of a comfort zone and maybe people putting a bigger target on their back or taking them more seriously. That could probably be part of it. Some sports cliches, but I think Seattle. I think they're gonna be back in the playoffs. They're just the way they rolled Denver in the Super Bowl last year. They just looked unstoppable. And yeah, some things have changed, but I think they got some good things going on up there, philosophy-wise. That'll keep them going. I like their defense a lot, so they usually get you pretty far.
Did it have anything to do with that run of wild card teams, Green Bay, the Giants, Baltimore, where they weren't favorites heading into the playoffs? They surprised a lot of teams. They barely made the playoffs. They get in, they win the whole thing. And the next year, well, they are who we thought they were, and they're not a playoff team. Any validity to that?
I think that's certainly possible. I mean, you've had a lot of squeakers that get into the playoffs and they'll make a run in the last 8 or 9 years, like you said. I just look at the team that gets into I think Seattle is going to be a top 2 seed, and their biggest thing is that home field advantage, just like New Orleans. And so if Seattle can put themselves in a situation where they're at home, all of a sudden they're not going to lose against a 5th or a 6th seed. That's not knowing the matchups. I mean, they could get some team that'll just kill them. But I just think it really comes down to a lot of luck, and I think there's you've had a lot of those squeakers get in.
I think it's a few reasons. In addition to what you guys mentioned already, some of the times if you get a first-round bye, I think that's a positive, obviously, but it's a negative in getting an easier game to win in the first round. If you're playing that 9-7 or 10-6 wild card team, or if you're the wild card team and you're playing the 9-7 division winner, I think that's an easier game to win. And then I think the other reason is, I think it's tough with professional sports when everybody is based solely on if they win or lose, coaches and players and GMs and support staff and everybody. When you can draw someone's focus, it's really tough to beat them. And when you're the defending Super Bowl champs, you just get everybody's best shot the next year.
That's the one.
So I would say it's those reasons in addition with what you guys all said.
That's the one thing I forgot to say is that you're getting everybody's best shot. I think that is a sports cliche, but I think that's certainly true that teams gang up on you, teams want to go after you, and I mean Seattle will have a couple debilitating injuries that will probably push them off track. Now, whether or not that they can still get to the Super Bowl and win, I think they still can because they had injuries last year. But you're going to get everybody's best shot. I'm glad Charlie mentioned that.
And I think also, scheduling-wise, I don't remember, but it's like I think they only have like 2 or 3 games each year in the schedule that aren't set up, but they can put against whoever they want. And if you're the NFL, you're going to want Seattle to play against somebody good because it's going to get better TV ratings. I mean, if you can pick to have the Seahawks play an extra game against the Eagles or against the Raiders. I realize they're not in the same conference. But you'd be like, no, let's get that good game that everyone wants to watch and not have that game that they're going to be 17-point favorites and nobody watches after the first quarter.
I opened up my Sports Illustrated a couple days ago, NFL Preview Edition. 2 things stood out in their predictions. Tampa Bay 11-5, go to hell. Minnesota at 4-12. Where do they get off?
Where do they get the nerve?
First off, let's start with Amon's Bucks. 11-5. Josh McCown future Hall of Famer. How the hell? I like the receivers. McCown, 35-36. Lovie Smith, pretty good coach. Their receivers, Vincent Jackson, Mike Evans. That's a good-looking bunch right there. 11-5. No, thank you. Playoffs, no, sir.
Are they running a Tampa 2 defense? Then they're not going 11-5.
I mean, I don't understand this at all.
So I guess I don't recall how this Josh McCown thing happened.
He was good with the Bears.
I thought last year they were using Mike Glennon, and I didn't think that was that bad, right? Or what happened?
He was better than I thought, but it's not like he set the world on fire. He was okay.
And they've given up, obviously.
Well, I mean, I think he's still. I mean, McCown's 36. He's never been a starter in his life. He played well with the Bears, as mentioned. Jeffries, good. Marshall, good. Forte, when healthy, very good. So a lot of weapons in that Bears offense. Tampa Bay, their receivers are pretty good. Maybe he can replicate it. Maybe I'm wrong. Chicago South here in Tampa Bay. Doug Martin, if he can stay healthy, they got a good running back. Sure up that defense. Maybe I'm off the. Maybe this is this year's Kansas City, but right now I'm not seeing Tampa Bay.
I think it depends what you look at with Tampa Bay. I mean, offensively, I would agree with everything you said. Defensively, they had first-team All-Pros with Gerald McCoy at defensive tackle and Levante David at outside linebacker. My guess is they're assuming that Lovie Smith's defense is basically going to play like the Tampa Bay defense did with Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks and John Lynch. I don't know if they will. I think they've got a chance to be pretty good on defense, and if they can hold teams to 17 points, I think their offense is good enough to score 20. But I don't think they're going to go 11-5 either.
I honestly think that Tampa Bay has a decent chance. I'd be surprised if Josh. I think maybe make the playoffs as that last wild card, but that's the best I can really see them doing. 11-5, right? That was a prediction.
That's what they said.
No, that's not going to happen. I feel like 9 wins, 8 or 9 wins is realistic. That's a realistic ceiling. If everything goes right, and as you mentioned, there's a lot of teams that have that happen. To sort of elaborate on Charlie's scheduling point, if you finish last in the division, you get the other last place teams from the previous year. So, they get the Vikings, they get Washington. I mean, and not all those teams are going to be good. Not all those teams are going to improve. So you at least have a chance of turning things around, and that's how you end up with Seattle playing Green Bay, Philadelphia, all those teams each year.
We'll touch on the AFC here, make some picks, then break down the Vikings. We'll also give Charlie some Miami time here. AFC, we've mentioned the favorites here. I mentioned Houston to begin the deal. Ryan Fitzpatrick doesn't excite me a whole hell of a lot there.
Ryan Mallett.
If that's the rumor, giving up that precious 6th rounder, 7th rounder for a former,
Hey, the Vikings have 3 7th rounders they drafted this year on their roster.
I mean, those guys, as we know,
they're making a big deal out of it. Like, ridiculous.
As you know, after the 2nd round, I don't give a shit about the picks. Doesn't matter to me. Doesn't trade all your 7 rounders, 6 rounders for the end of time. Doesn't matter to me. AFC, Ryan Mallett, can he lead Houston there? Because I think Houston schedule is winnable here. 8-8, 8-8, 9-7 gets you into the AFC last year. Denver, Indianapolis, New England, those divisions we like. Synopsis AFC, Charlie Hildebrand.
I know, just because you were talking about the Texans, I think the Texans are going to be really interesting. I mean, with what Bill O'Brien did at Penn State, Bill O'Brien turned Matt McGloin into an NFL quarterback at Penn State. I don't know how great they'll be on offense. I think he'll find a way to make it so they're not constantly turning it over, and they'll at least be serviceable. And I think Houston's going to have a pretty good defense. I'm not picking against Andrew Luck and the Colts in that division. I'm still picking the Colts to win the AFC South. But I could see Houston going 8-8, 9-7, and being the one team that, kind of like Kansas City, sort of, but maybe not as many wins, But, going from being the worst team in the NFL record-wise to having a pretty good year. And then after that, I think the Patriots will win the AFC East, I think, is just like the Florida State will still win the ACC. And, other than that, hopefully Peyton stays healthy and the Broncos can look good, because if he's healthy, I think they've got a chance to be pretty good again. But, we'll see. I'm more interested in the NFC this year.
I think the Texans will be better. I think I mentioned that earlier. I'm not as crazy about the Bill O'Brien thing, because while he did turn Matt McGloin into a serviceable quarterback, at the end of the day, Penn State didn't set the world on fire either. And I've completely shot down this whole lineage of Bill Belichick assistants. You look at the guys that have gone on to be head coaches.
Garbage.
Romeo Crennel, Josh McDaniels.
True.
I can't even name them all, but they're all terrible. So
Charlie Weiss,
yeah. I'm not jumping down the old well for Bill O'Brien. I think the Colts will be the team to win that division. They'll be incredibly boring doing it, but
the Colts they get their ass kicked unexpectedly against the Rams, and then they go out and beat Seattle. This team is. Who the hell knows what you're getting for them?
Both Seattle and Denver last year, the two teams in the Super Bowl.
And San Francisco, who I think was pretty good last year as well. So, easy games here.
Offensive line.
Yeah, Jacksonville, Tennessee can probably beat up on those teams. But Indianapolis, Amon hated them. I liked them. Pulled off that great upset against Kansas City, down, 4 touchdowns at halftime. Unbelievable game there. So Indianapolis, they could go a lot of different ways here. Very, very up and down. AFC picks. This is your official pick. If you want to go division by division, that's fine. I'll take New England. I'll take Pittsburgh to come back, win the North. Indianapolis, Denver. I'll take Houston to get that 6th seed, and I think I'll take San Diego to have a 5 seed, and I'll take Denver again to represent the AFC. Mr. Hildebrand, any differences in your predictions?
Mine aren't dramatically different. And quick note here, I forgot we were doing the NFL preview, so I'm doing all this off the fly, off the top of my head. But I'm going New England in the AFC East. I think someone else could win it, but it'd be crazy to predict that now. I'm taking Indianapolis in the South. I don't think the Bengals will win the North with 2 brand new coordinators. I'm going to go with Baltimore. I don't have a great feeling on the AFC North. I know the Browns will still suck this year. And in the AFC West, I kind of want to pick against Denver, but I don't think anyone else is going to be that great in the AFC West either, although the Chargers and Chiefs both made the playoffs last year. I'll go with Denver, but I don't think they're going to be nearly as good. Peyton Manning has a standard good year instead of the greatest year ever, and Denver will go 11-4, 10-6. And just because they're always really good, I guess I'll pick the Patriots to go to the Super Bowl.
I will copy Kriens' division picks to a T. New England, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, Denver. I think San Diego will be the 5 seed. I think Miami is the final wild card team.
Yep.
And champion of the AFC, I will take Denver again.
I think it's going to go Patriots, Ravens, Colts, Broncos, and I'm mixing it up here. I'm going Dolphins and Titans as the 2 wild card teams.
Oh, I like that.
Titans.
Jake Locker.
Yes. I think the Sankey guy, running back.
The Bishop.
Sankey. Yep.
Well, Sean Green's a starter, but I think that'll be a nice little 1-2 punch when they realize that Sean Green's old and fat now.
A lot of people hate on Jake Locker. I don't think he's done yet. I think he's got some a year ahead of him.
How do I feel about Jake Locker?
You hate him.
You are not a fan. You think he's very poor.
I do. Poor on top of poor.
I think he's got some good receivers around him, though. That always helps.
Kenny Britt, we'll see what happens. Justin Hunter, I believe. We'll see what happens there. So a lot of people on that. Do you like Denver too? To represent the AFC?
No, Patriots.
Patriots. Okay, we got a couple Patriots, got a couple Denver. We'll give some time here to Charlie's Dolphins. Stacken does not like them at all. He does not like Tennessee either. 3-4 win teams. I think he has 4 wins for Miami. Tannehill, my guys at the Pro Football Focus had him rated about number 5, number 6 last year overall. A bit surprising. Didn't see a whole lot of Miami last year. 8-8, right in the playoff mix, tied with the Jets. What can we expect from the Dolphins this year?
I think we can expect that they will not have a season shut down because of guys making.
Okay.
So I don't think that they will have the season sort of shut down because guys are bullying each other again. So that's a plus. I think their offensive line that was atrocious last year will at least be okay. So Tannehill will get more time and won't spend the last 2 games of the season like last year getting sacked every other play. Ultimately, I think the Dolphins. They won more games they shouldn't have last year. I think they'll be a little bit better, but they will not win as many games as they shouldn't, and they'll go between 6-10 and 9-7. I think they've got some good talent. They could make a run to get into the playoffs. I don't think they're going to win the division. I like some of the stuff they're doing on offense. I know they've got Philadelphia's offensive coordinator now, but ultimately, I don't think they're not going to have a better record than New England.
NFC, I will take, reluctantly, I'll take Seattle to win that division. New Orleans, Green Bay, Philadelphia, and I like Chicago to be a wild card, also like San Francisco to be a wild card. I'm really torn here between Seattle and San Francisco. I guess I will go San Francisco to meet Denver in the Super Bowl. Mr. Koob, we'll start with you, NFC picks. Division winners, wild card. Super Bowl representative.
I'm going to go Eagles in the East, Packers in the North, Saints in the South, and West is Seahawks, obviously. For my wild card teams, I'm going to also choose the Bears. And for that last wild card spot, I'm going to pick the Panthers.
All right.
Super Bowl representative. I'm going to go Seahawks again. They just looked so good last year. And I know last year doesn't matter that much, but, man, it was impressive what they did last year in the Super Bowl.
I'm going to take basically the chalk division picks. I'll take Seattle, New Orleans, Philadelphia, and Green Bay. I think just like Kriens said, Chicago and San Francisco are the wild card teams. I'm hopeful that New Orleans has a good season. We talked earlier the 4 division teams that you could see missing the playoffs. I said New Orleans, but I do like New Orleans quite a bit, and I'm hopeful that, just like in last year's playoffs, they had that critical last year's season they had that critical Monday night game that was in Seattle and they lost, right?
Yep, got the doors blown off.
And that was supposed to be the game, I thought, to decide home field. Those 2 teams do play again this year, don't they?
I believe they do.
New Orleans, Seattle. No, they don't. Okay, I thought they might have.
They will in the playoffs. They will in the playoffs.
They will in the playoffs. I'm hopeful that the Saints have home field, and I'm not bitter like some Vikings fans about 2009. So I'm perfectly okay pulling for the Saints. Excuse me. I'm hopeful that we see like a Saints-Packers shootout, or even a Saints-Bears shootout. I want to see a lot of points. I think the NFC will be pretty up and down, and ultimately I think it will be the Saints going to the Super Bowl. They'll play the Broncos.
I know my picks won't be dramatically different than any of your guys'. I've got Philadelphia in the East. In the South, I've got New Orleans. I think in the South, it's like 8 straight years. Nobody's won the division twice in a row. Yeah. Panthers won it last year, so the Saints can win it this year. Green Bay in the North. I'm going to pick San Francisco out of the West instead of Seattle, but I'll still have Seattle making the wild card. and I will have the Bears also making the wild card. And I'm nervous that we're all taking the Bears. That gives me the feeling they might only win 5 games now. And then I will take the Packers to get out of the NFC and have a New England Green Bay Super Bowl where both quarterbacks throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns.
So would this, under your scenario, would this mean Seattle loses first round on the road to keep up the tradition?
In this scenario, I will say that they will.
Very good. Friend of the program.
We'll go if they lose in New Orleans, that the New Orleans home crowd gets to them, and they have 7 turnovers.
Nice. Friend of the program, Peter King. He picks, I believe it's Green Bay over Indianapolis. So Andrew Luck, the neckbeard, making quite a jump here. Packers 30, Colts 23. I've got Denver defeating San Francisco, and Jim Harbaugh goes to Michigan to be their coach after the season. And that's my prediction. Marcus Traxler, what you've got New Orleans. And Denver. Is Peyton Manning, Breeze or Manning, somebody will get their second Super Bowl. Who will it be?
Super Bowl's in Arizona. Not that it's going to matter that it's being played in a dome.
That's all. That's the biggest thing ever.
I would love to say that I think it'll be Peyton Manning. I'm as big a Peyton Manning apologist as anybody. Gun to my head today, I'll take New Orleans and Breeze to win a second Super Bowl.
All right, Mr. Koob.
Oh, if I had to choose, I think odds would be in Peyton Manning's favor. And I think even though the Broncos aren't my Super Bowl pick, I could see Broncos going back to the Super Bowl and winning this year. So yeah, I'd go with Manning on that debate.
You've got Seattle, New England Super Bowl.
Yep.
Will Seattle make it 2 in a row, or will Brady? He's got 3.
Yeah, I think Brady gets his 4th.
As long as he doesn't play the Giants, he should be fine. But Seattle's pretty goddamn tough. So
if he wins the Super Bowl, does he go out?
He goes out on the town that night. Yes, he does.
No, I'm talking about out of the NFL. He quits football.
No,
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. I always like the idea of somebody.
When has it happened?
Done.
When has it happened? Jordan had a chance, didn't happen.
Jordan did it, and then he changed his mind.
I know people don't. It doesn't really count, but Strahan did do that. Won the Super Bowl, retired.
To a much lesser degree, I suppose we could throw Jerome Bettis in there.
Right.
Because he did it too.
Us.
Not a quarterback.
Did FDR do it?
FDR did it.
Yeah,
He was so good. He went out before he even knew the war was going to be.
He had World War II in hand. Yeah.
He went out in the championship game. Said, "Boys, I've done my work.
You guys take it.
You don't
from
need
here.
me anymore.
15 years with the president, good enough for me."
We'll make Truman drop the bomb so it goes on him instead.
Truman's a modern day Ryan Mallett, is what it is.
Yeah.
Or Jimmy Garoppolo, one of the two.
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Are there any? I don't mean to.
I'll go with Bobby Brister.
I don't mean to completely sidetrack our sports conversation.
So yeah, take us off topic here of World War II's quarterbacks here.
No, has there ever been any discussion of FDR suicide?
No.
Is that a conspiracy that's out there? Considering that maybe the polio was getting to be a bit much, and maybe he didn't want to have to take credit for dropping the bomb.
I've never heard this.
I don't know if there's anything to it.
Are you starting something here?
I've not.
Why not? 70 years later.
I've not heard it with FDR, and I certainly don't believe this is the case. But I have heard that some people think that JFK contracted a deadly STD from Marilyn Monroe and hired someone to kill himself so he could go out in a blaze of glory. Yeah. My guess is that's probably not accurate, but some people do deeply think and will try to convince you that happened in the dark, scary corners of the internet.
Sources say that happened. Do you like Seattle or New England?
I like the Patriots.
The Patriots, very good.
Yep.
Mr. Hildebrand, you've got New England, and who's your NFC pick here?
Green Bay.
Oh, Green Bay. There you go.
Yep. I will begrudgingly say, because I know you Vikings fans don't like him, but I will go with Aaron Rodgers outduels Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. And that it seems like the Patriots, like Kriens said, that they're good as long as they don't play the Giants. I will say that when the Patriots are not defensive oriented and they have the fun, entertaining offense, that's what makes them not win the Super Bowl.
Well, they go
Not
back.
great reasoning or analogy, but I think Aaron Rodgers leads Green Bay.
Two things about that. I said I wasn't bitter about the Saints. I'm always bitter about the Packers, so I can't in good conscience pick them to win the Super Bowl or go to the Super Bowl. Plus, I love any sort of scenario that just like knifes at a Packer fan. So like you know that either. So in my scenario, if New Orleans is the number 1 seed, and I think Green Bay's gonna have a great season. They're 1 or 2 seed, whatever. They host either like Seattle or Chicago or San Francisco, and they play a team that throws really well, or can move the ball pretty well. I mean, they've never been able to stop Kaepernick for some unforeseen reason, and I think Chicago's going to give him quite a bit of trouble. So I can just see somebody going up to Lambeau Field in January and just stomping them and just letting them all down.
Could happen.
Green
Bay's won this block and pass protection for being done for the year.
Right, exactly. I mean, their whole season rests on being able to block, and Green Bay hasn't blocked efficiently in at least 5 years. So
Long time.
We'll see how this goes.
So I like Denver. Marcus likes, New Orleans to win.
Yep. Is that okay with you? Can I pick New Orleans even though you hate the city?
Yeah, we'll get into that. Shane, he likes New England, and Charlie, he liked Green Bay, right?
Yep.
So that's 4 different winners. That's good. That's a good job right there.
Parody.
Yes. Why do I not hate Green Bay as much as I used to? And why do I not hate
amongst all these great teams with fantastic quarterbacks?
I don't hate Green Bay as much as I used to. I hated Favre with a goddamn passion. He came to Minnesota. He was my favorite player. That was a tremendous story. I do not hate Aaron Rodgers, really at all, compared to Brett Favre. Why? Psychologist Traxler, diagnose me.
Well, I mean, Rodgers has like an incredible ego. Like,
anything to do with that denim outfit? Did that persuade me at all?
I don't know, but he has. I mean, I watched I don't remember if it was a 60 Minutes thing or E60 or
Probably
something.
60 Minutes, yeah.
But he has like an inferiority complex where people call him short. That bugs him. He doesn't. He's still obviously pissed off about being picked 22nd in 2005. Even though he's won NFL MVP, he's won a Super Bowl. So I don't know if that's something that appeals to you. Like with Favre, it's like Rodgers. You always knew he was supposed to be good, whereas Favre, he's kind of always had this backwoods hillbilly, football thing, and I mean, you're never going to see Rodgers in a Wrangler ad. I don't know if that's maybe something that appeals to you, but I just think like Rodgers, he's more confident in his ability, whereas Favre was always trying to prove things to you. And I mean, there is some of that with Rodgers too, but and Rodgers doesn't make just these terrible decisions. I mean, everybody, you can go back to the Packer days and find plenty of games where he made mistakes that were just boneheaded. But at the end of the day, Rodgers really doesn't make those types of mistakes. And maybe you like the fact that Rodgers is pretty much unfrazzled, unbreakable, whereas you could pretty clearly get into Favre's head.
This may or may not help you with liking or not liking Rodgers, but compared to Favre, as far as we know, he is not taking pictures of his genitals and send it to other people. Pro or con, I don't know. That's for you to decide.
I would say that that's probably a more likable thing about Favre, though. To be honest.
Okay. He's the everyman. He's the everyman.
He's the everyman. I mean, yeah, every pretty much.
The guy you go get a beer with.
Yeah.
I was not fans of John Madden and Pat Summerall, contrary to Traxler's religious beliefs here. I mean, you know how I feel about the drunk of Summerall. You know how I feel about him.
He got somebody's liver. Isn't
that's
that okay?
fine. Well, why did he need that? Because he drank like a frickin' sieve. That's why. So I was not fans of that. And Favre, growing up, was really the first Tebow and Manziel, where Madden, greatest of all time. It's been parodied quite a bit. Madden would jizz his pants multiple times a game over the greatness of Mr. Favre, and I thought it was a bit too much for a man that he had a good 2, 3, 4-year run there, a couple Super Bowls, 1 win, but really after that Broncos Super Bowl, never really got back to that level.
I'm a lot like you. I hated Favre when he played for the Packers because I hated how they'd come into the Metrodome every year and they just cruise. I mean, Favre would have no problem. The
But wasn't the deal like he always had trouble in the dome and he was like a 500 quarterback and he can't get out of the dome?
I don't remember any times where the Vikings, I mean, other than the Randy Moss, Randall Cunningham greatness years, I don't remember any standout performances where I just remember Favre coming in there and knocking everybody's doors off. I don't know.
Yeah, he did, but they had some down years in the early 2000s where they didn't make the playoffs for a couple of years, and
I need to look up my Brett Favre history because I feel like I don't know enough. Okay. So just like the FDR conspiracy theories, I'll do a little research and I'll get back to you.
They'll get back to me on that.
Yep.
Vikings, what do we think here? As I said, I'm excited for the season. Castle's played pretty good. Bridgewater played very well. Adrian Peterson, he wants to go to Dallas, so F him. 4-12, that's not going to happen. Somehow this team won 5 games last year, tied another with the worst quarterback that I've seen this franchise put out there for a 20, 30-game stretch. He's no longer a factor. That is good. I expect at least 6 wins, maybe 8. Mr. Koob, where do you see the Vikings this year?
I see right at 8-8, and I think that'd be a good start to the Mike Zimmer era. I'm really excited to see what Cordero Patterson is going to do. I think he's in for a big year. I think Cordero Patterson is going to be better than Percy Harvin when their careers are both said and done. So I'm excited to see that kind of blossom, and I think the defense will be a little better, but I don't think they're going to be a lot better because Zimmer still doesn't have probably the personnel that he all wants. I think he wants another good safety, but they don't have that right now. But it's going to be fun watching Harrison Smith play in Zimmer's defense. I noticed just in training camp, I went to the first day of training camp and seeing Harrison Smith up on the line and hovering around and moving around before the snap. So I think he's going to have a good year in the Zimmer system.
I'm excited to see the defense.
Christian Ponder to safety, right?
He's not Eric Crouch, so no safety for him.
He plays safety like he plays quarterback. It means the defense is going to look pretty good, so they'd be pretty solid on D then, right? Isn't that how it works?
I feel like if Ponder was a safety to play within the first 5 yards of the line, because that's all I did as a quarterback, he couldn't throw the goddamn ball more than 5 yards past the line of scrimmage, so he'd get burned deep a lot. Although I would like to see him as a punt returner, and for the NFL to get rid of the fair catch rule, and get the shit knocked out of him. That would be fun. So let's get the lobbyists and peer to lobby for that. I think that would be a hell of a lot of fun. I am excited for the defense, though. You saw Brian Robinson drop back into coverage. Not that he's a great coverage defensive end by any means, but to do something different, for God's sakes. If you're expecting the DN to rush, well, no, he's coming back. We're bringing the linebacker. We're bringing safeties, cornerbacks. We're blitzing. Everson Griffin in and out of coverage. We're doing different things. Not the same goddamn thing every time. Corners, playing up on the guys. No more zone. No more Tampa 2. You got cornerbacks on the line of scrimmage, staying with their man. A lot better tackling this preseason. A lot tighter coverage in the secondary. Marcus Straxler. Zimmer's defense. Vikings as a whole, I think we like them 8-8.
I would agree. I think 6 to 8 wins seems like the right scenario for the Vikings. I think the schedule's a little too difficult for them to fully make it to the playoffs. I think they'll struggle right away. But I think before we'll get to midseason, I think they'll really groove. Bridgewater, I hope he'll be in there. It's funny that Coob mentioned the safety thing because they brought in Chris Crocker and because you need to fill the training camp media void, everybody's like, well, it's from Zimmer's system. Oh, he'll fit right in. And sure as shit, he gets cut. And
well, did he even play?
I don't know if he played.
I don't know if he even played. I don't think.
I think the defense will be fine. I'm very eager to see what Anthony Barr can do, and I think Jasper Brinkley. We'll see, but I think middle linebacker isn't the most important position in a 4-3 defense. So we'll see how things can sort of hold up. I'm curious to see what kind of season Adrian Peterson has. He comes out, he says, I'm going to run for 2,500 yards last year, and he didn't get anywhere near that. So I'll be interested to see what he can sort of do. I think he'll have a pretty good season. He'll be somewhat more focused, and I'm very eager to see what Cordero Patterson. I think Greg Jennings will have to have a better year. I think he's probably disappointed himself after last year.
I wonder why that was. Wonder why Jennings struggled so much at the beginning.
Ponder didn't throw to him.
Oh, well, and Castle, as I've said many times, it was just amazing. Castle comes in there, guys are open, throwing the ball down the field. Jennings all of a sudden becomes a Pro Bowl type receiver. Without him, with Ponder in there, you swear to God, Jennings wasn't even on the team. Yeah. Somehow he had
100 yards.
Yeah, somehow he had over 800 yards last year, and I swear to God, I didn't even know he was activated for probably 8 games last year. Castle comes in when he had 6 touchdowns. They were all from Castle. Amazing. I want a book to be written on Ponder. The shit he was. I'm so sad this is going to end, Marcus. I'm so goddamn sad this is going to end.
You're not sad. You're not.
Yes, I am. Oh, no, I'm not. No, I'm not.
I think Cordell
Patterson's good.
It's like a liberal comedian with George W. Bush.
Yes, I'm so bad. That presidency lasted. I wish more wars, more debt, just more shittiness. I mean, my God.
What are you going to have to talk about with the Vikings now, though?
I don't know.
Football.
Well, I mean, they did sign former Gopher quarterback Marquise Gray to be a tight end today for some godforsaken reason. So that's a bad deal.
What's wrong with Reisner?
I don't know. And you sign this guy, so then you gotta cut somebody else. We'll see what happens. But I think Kyle Rudolph will have a good year. I think this defense is going to take its lumps. I'm curious to see if Everson Griffin ends up being the guy they paid him to be, because at times he was really good last year, but that wasn't as a full-time guy. And so I think the defense will improve. And I think most importantly, the Vikings have drafted well in recent years, and so that does set you up. You have to draft well to be a good team long term. I think the Vikings are setting themselves up to be one of those teams because they have filled some needs. They have gotten some stuff accomplished through the draft, and
fifth youngest team in the NFL.
Right. I just think they're in a good position. I think this year will be a much easier, enjoyable season to watch, even if they're not winning games. Now, we'll see if I say that when they lose in Week 1 at St. Louis in just a disgusting fashion, but we'll see. We'll see if I'm still saying that next week.
I think I kind of agree with you guys. Yeah. I'd kind of put them somewhere between the low end of 5 wins, and if they get a lot of breaks, they could win 9. I think they're going to miss Jared Allen and the production he's got, but certainly I think overall their defense will be more sound and better by the end of the year. I think their offense will probably struggle at times early in the year too. My guess is they move to Bridgewater at some point, but they will ultimately be solid on offense and addition by subtraction, no Ponder. I think they'll be solid. If they get a whole bunch of, if they finish like plus 15 in turnovers, I could see them, maybe getting to 9 or 10 wins, but I think that's You'd have to have a really lucky year with a lot of turnovers. But yeah, like you guys said, 7-9 or 8-8 wouldn't surprise me with Minnesota.
I look at the Jared Allen thing, and I mean, I would have liked to have kept him with the Vikings, but the money he got for the Bears, there's no way that was going to happen. And he was asking for a little too much. And you look at the production last year. I mean, it did taper off.
He did not try on run plays last year.
Right. He's not much of a run stopper. You could put out a replacement level player, and he would have been able to stop the run better. So, and I will say that I actually think, unfortunately for Matt Castle, I think an injury is what puts Teddy Bridgewater on the field. So.
All right. I think at the end of
Charlie Johnson.
The injury to Charlie Johnson is what puts Teddy Bridgewater on the field.
My goodness. I think Cordell Patterson at the end of this year will be a top 5 receiver. I hope he continues in the kickoff game because he's tremendous. If it was up to me, he'd get 5 carries a game in the backfield. Just use him as much as possible. Tremendous talent. I think in 2 years from now, if you want to say he's the most exciting player, the best receiver in the game, I think that's how much I like this guy. I got him at 8-8. So Teddy Bridgewater probably no later than midseason, and at the earliest maybe week 4 or 5. So they got a quarterback in the wings, somebody that actually looks good, probably the first decent quarterback they've had since Culpepper. That's going to be there for more than a year or two. So that's exciting to see. I expect him to beat St. Louis, Bradford or not. I expect him to beat St. Louis. So you got to get that win because the next 2 games are pretty tough. We did have the fantasy draft here a couple nights ago. We'll start with Mr. Koob. You've got some heavy hitters here, sir. You got an Aaron Rodgers. You got a Cordell Patterson. You've got Calvin Johnson on your team. This seems like a very loaded team at some big positions here. Running back.
Do you have anyone outside of the NFC North?
He does have Tom Brady, Ryan Matthews, Shane Vereen. Running back may be a question mark. You went. You did not go running back early. We'll see if that hurts. You did take Terrence West from Cleveland. We'll see how he does. Carlos Hyde, maybe Frank Gore at 45 years old finally breaks down. That'll be interesting.
That's what I'm crossing my fingers for that. I really am.
You do have Kyle Rudolph. See if he can get 8-10 touchdowns for you. San Francisco's got a solid defense. Were you happy with your draft?
I was pretty happy with my draft because I saw we had 3 running backs, and my thought was, well, I'm not going to go after the top running backs. I'm going to live on the waiver wire, maybe get some mediocre running backs, and just try and pick up the guys who come in and start for 2 or 3 games and have big weeks. So went that route. I think I got Cordero in the 4th round. I think Cordero's going to have a huge year, so that's why I took him early. And I limited my homerism to Patterson and Rudolph.
Alfred Morris, solid running back there. See if he can, if RG3 can stay healthy, maybe he'll have another big year. Straight cash homie, Randy Moss, my favorite NFL player of all time, so I more than approve of that team name. Mr. Traxler, you got the Jacksonville Pool Cabanas. I don't know what the hell that means or what that's about. That's something different.
You don't know what that's about.
Jacksonville Pool Cabanas. Explain this.
I do need to explain. They put those damn pool cabanas inside the stadium. They've got pools and they just got pools that are up there like hot tubs that you can watch the game from.
So this is like Arizona Diamondbacks here.
Yes, yeah. They've got 4 or 6 or 8 of them.
Well, that should pull in the crowd.
So when the team goes 4-12, you need to do something to get people to go there.
You got a big enough scoreboard now?
Right underneath the scoreboard, one of the big scoreboards there, and I'm sure they've got drink service there and good revenue for the Jaguars.
Now you went, I believe Peyton Manning was your first pick.
Yeah.
Good first round pick. What you picked 7th or 4th? 5th?
It might have been 6th once it was all said and done, but yeah, 6th.
Got Kaepernick as your second quarterback, Alex Smith on the bench, so you'll win a lot of games. Your stats won't be very good, but you'll win a lot of games. DeMarco Murray, a guy that I've liked throughout the years when he stays healthy, and when Dallas decides to run the ball more than 5 times in the second half, he's usually pretty good. Ben Tate going from Houston to Cleveland, see if he can be the guy in Cleveland. C.J. Spiller keeping it local, that's good to see with the Clemson product.
Yeah.
Your receivers look pretty good. Brandon Marshall. We'll see how Roddy White does with a healthy Julio Jones. Trent Richardson. Somehow you lost a bet. You took Trent Richardson.
You were talking about Coob's depleted running attack, and I look at mine. DeMarco Murray. I mean, he'll be fun to have for 2 weeks until he sprains his ankle and he's out for 6. And then you've got Ben Tate, C.J. Spiller. One of those guys will be fine. The other one will also die. And then so you got Trent Richardson, and it's going to be an issue. This running attack, but I do feel okay with the wide receivers. The one thing I remembered from last year is that you have to have quarterbacks that put up a lot of points. Peyton Manning will do that. Kaepernick will do okay doing that. Even if in the weeks I got to play Alex Smith, he should be okay. Kickers and defenses, I don't give a shit about.
You took a backup kicker.
Which position?
You took a backup kicker. I believe you took Phil Dawson.
Yeah. He's not the starter.
Blair Walsh is your kicker. Phil Dawson is your backup.
Yeah.
I did not take a backup kicker,
No.
backup tight end, or backup defense.
At some point, you've got to put somebody in there on the bye week. I'd rather just not have to. I'd not have to go find somebody.
What I do, my bench exclusively receivers and running backs. Hopefully, I probably should have done that, but I did.
I got Johnny Football and Ryan Tannehill on my bench.
Tannehill, as we mentioned, we'll see what he does. Manziel, you know how I feel. Tremendous. I really like him. So he'll probably start in week 4. So Manziel, good pick there. We'll see. I see Tim Tebow was drafted and already dropped. Interesting there. So that's really disappointing. But all three of us are in the same division here. You really stack these divisions here, Traxler.
No, it was just they were just replacements for the teams last year, and it just so happened that Coob took a spot in this division. I didn't reorder the divisions at all, so it's the same as last year, same slots.
So what do you got? A 10-team league here? What, 8 make the playoffs? Is this how this is going to work?
Right. So don't finish 9th or 10th because otherwise you'll be playing the same team 3 weeks in a row.
6 and 7. Somehow I made the playoffs. I think I won a game, made the semifinals. So I will take this more seriously this year because Mr. Stacken's league, the long-running Stacken Challenge League, he did not do it this year. So disappointed in him. Disappointed in him. So we'll put our attention here into the Sports Lounge League. Mr. Traxler, the Jacksonville Pool Cabanas versus Drake's favorite team, David Schottenkirk's run team here. Week 1 matchup, primetime NBC.
Rivalry right off the gate here in week 1.
You're not screwing around, are you?
I've already done some shit talking to him. I won't be able to back it up because that guy lives for fantasy and gambling, so I'm going to have a hard time matching his wits, but it should be fun either way.
Very good. So plenty to look forward to. I'm sure we'll get updates, and this is a Marcus Traxler run league. I'm sure we'll have the NFL Pick'em as well against the spread coming up here. Get that sent out and get your picks in by Thursday. Or if you're an Amon, we'll see how good Amon does in this.
How many straight Thursday night games he can miss?
I got it at 6. I
think I missed it about 4 times last year.
Yeah, I mean, it happens to everybody. I think what I'll do is I'll just start out picking all those games at the beginning of the season, and if I remember to change them over the season, I'll do that. I'll just take whatever the favorites are now if I can.
We did go 45 minutes less on NFL than we did on college football last week, so we're doing something right.
That's a win.
Efficient.
College football this past week.
I'm going to cut out, so you guys have a good week.
Before you do, Liberty gave your Tar Heels a bit of a scare. They turned it on there late in the game, but Liberty may win multiple games this year. Solid club. We'll talk about the Sports Lounge teams here. Did not fare well. Navy, a good effort. We'll give Navy the thumbs up. But 1 week down, 13 to go for UNC.
The road to double-digit wins starts with a little bit of a scare.
The road to the Music City Bowl, well intact.
Belk Bowl. They'll be in the Belk Bowl.
They're going to go local. They're going to keep it local, too.
That's right. As Belk Bowl CEO, we've already started angling to get North Carolina, even with 10 wins, make them to keep their sorry asses
outside
in-state,
shot at the Brute Sun Bowl.
Brute Sun Bowl. Yes.
Remind us where the show's at next week before you leave.
The show inside the Sports Lounge. Inside.
Thank you. We'll just replay that at the end of the show. So.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Marcus Traxler joining us here for the NFL preview. Mr. Stacken may join. We'll see. But best game you saw from a Saturday, Friday, Thursday, or the game that you thought had the most impact going forward? At LSU, Wisconsin, Georgia in their running game taking over in the fourth quarter there versus Clemson. Florida State with quite the scare versus Oklahoma State. You had UCLA sucking it up against Virginia. Alabama with a scare. A&M beating the hell out of South Carolina. Any game from the weekend that sticks out, Mr. Hildebrand?
I know for me, since I've got to work Saturday evening, so I can see a little bit at work but miss some stuff. I got pretty enthralled with the Florida State-Oklahoma State game to the point that I quit paying attention to Wisconsin because they were beating LSU 24-7. And then I got home and I turned on the TV. I was like, oh, I guess LSU's winning now. So I saw the end of that game. I think I'd go with Oklahoma State, Florida State, though, just because it looked like Florida State was going to roll, even though they weren't playing all that well. Oklahoma State came back, had numerous chances to win, kind of shot themselves in the foot, but certainly Florida State made great plays too. But just in kind of that, it seems like every year there's this team's so good, they're going to beat everybody by 50, nobody can stop them. And then midway through the third quarter, it was like, oh, I guess Oklahoma State didn't hear that and they forgot they were supposed to lose, and it ended up being a pretty good game.
Yeah, it was a fun, big opening weekend. I'll have to agree with Charlie there. I was definitely had my eyes tuned in on that Oklahoma State Florida State game. That Jameis Winston touchdown run was ridiculous. I've been playing Madden for years, and I don't know if I've ever made that ridiculous of a run on Madden. That was beautiful. That was beautiful football. But yeah, it's good to have a college back. Watched a little bit of the North Dakota State-Iowa State game, and the Cyclones, watching them lose is fun because I'm a Hawkeyes fan. So, yeah, good to have college football back.
Winston, the Heisman winner. Charlie, yeah.
Or I was just going to say, on Jameis Winston, is it just me? And I'm not saying he's not a good runner because he's obviously fast and he can run well. But is it just me, or when he runs, does it kind of look like he's making fun of the kids that can't run very well? And then you see him, though, and you're like, oh, I guess he got 15 yards, so I don't care if he looks goofy while he did it. But am I the only one that thinks that, or has anyone else ever thought that, too? The first time each game you see him run, you're like, wait, he's kidding, right?
It's amazing how, some of the cuts that he makes, how he doesn't snap his ACL. Like, a normal human being would snap their ACL on a couple of the cuts he made on that touchdown run last night. And his ACLs are healthy and intact and still work, and it's ridiculous.
Who runs more gracefully, Jameis Winston or Delman Young?
At least when Jameis...
I'm going to give it to Delman because he's smaller.
Delman looks painful when Delman looks like a 40-year-old guy who's on the verge of needing a knee replacement and hip surgery when he runs. Oh boy, it's bad.
I always thought it looked like, they had a sheet of ice in left field. He was running, trying not to slip on a sheet of ice. It was always like, goddamn guy, move your goddamn feet, go.
I always had the, when the Simpsons start up their little roller car and it's like with the feet. I always had that noise playing in my head when Delman Young would take off for a ball that he was going to try and chase.
The Flintstones?
Yep.
You've been watching too much Simpsons marathon because you said the Simpsons, and I was confused for a second.
Mr. Stacken joining the program. Very good. Winston just seems slow. He's very effective. Heisman as a freshman, very good. Scrambled 20, 30 yards. He just seems slow, no matter what he does. The guy just seems slow. Is this a problem? He does well, but
I don't think he looks slow.
I think he did like the goddamn the delivery of the pass. Just it's like it takes him fucking a day and a half to get that goddamn ball.
That's the thing. He's in college. He can be that kind of a player.
Yeah, you can.
You can't do that in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm interested to see here in a couple of years when he does go to the NFL what. I don't think he's going to be all that great. Similar to 50 Cent wanting Mayweather to read some Harry Potter, I would like to see Jameis Winston read a page of a book. So I think that would be a lot of fun. Mr. Stacken.
Hey, thank you. Is this the NFL preview show?
Yes, we did make our picks. We'll get to your picks in a bit.
Okay.
Marcus, he left, so we bring you in. That was good timing.
Good.
Best game or there you go. Best game, most important game, most impactful game from the college football weekend.
I think the best game to me was LSU Wisconsin.
I thought in the first half that game was so goddamn boring. I thought Alabama was in Wisconsin jerseys.
That's very true. I enjoyed LSU coming back to win there. In all honesty, I think the biggest, most impactful game, at least from my perspective, was North Dakota State just going into Iowa State and trouncing them.
Is that an upset?
Just because it's an FCS over an FBS, but
No, I don't.
But just to see North Dakota State retool the way they did after losing 12 starters and their coach, and going in there and laying a beat down to an Iowa State team that was supposed to have a really good offense with a new offensive coordinator, Mark Mangino, just didn't go the way it was supposed to for them.
They play Iowa next year. I expect them to beat Iowa.
I would too. Why not? 5 in a row against FBS teams.
I don't think they'll beat the Hawks.
I hope not. But until they don't beat a team, I'm just going to assume that they will.
They will.
Until they don't.
It's a good strategy.
The Florida State game, because that LSU-Wisconsin game, they were kind of on similar times. I was really excited for LSU-Wisconsin. I'm glad LSU won. That fits into my playoff scenario quite well, with both of them making it.
Can I throw another game in there first, too? Because I forgot it from Thursday night. But I think Texas A&M going into Columbia and kicking the crap out of Steve Spurrier and the Gamecocks. That didn't see coming. Who's this? Kenny Hill, the next big thing in college football, I guess.
The Brock Lesnar. There you go. That's the big thing.
Texas A&M was able to keep him in Texas and go to the University of Texas in Austin. They got him. It looks like an outstanding young player. And Texas A&M now, I think, is a definite factor or a contender in the SEC, and I didn't expect that at the beginning of the year.
It turns out we were not giving Kevin Sumlin enough credit as the head coach of A&M the last 2 years. We were giving too much credit to other people, like Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator, and Manziel, and Mike Evans, and everybody else. And no one said, you know what, maybe we should give the head coach some of the credit here.
We didn't talk about A&M really at all last week. I don't know if we even mentioned him. Kenny Hill, sure as hell didn't mention him. Is he the guy that we didn't mention, nobody knew of, nobody talked about? He seems to be a early Heisman contender.
Yeah, I think about the only thing we didn't do last week was break down the Heisman Trophy, and I was going to say that every year someone comes out of nowhere the last 5 years, and it appears we got that guy in week one of who it's going to be, and it's Kenny Hill. Certainly, I don't know if he's going to win it, but But if he has too many more games like that, he's going to be one of the guys in New York at the end of the year.
Well, and think about all the Heisman hopefuls, the Marcus Mariotas, the Brett Hundleys, and the going on down the line there. Marcus Mariota played a half against USD last night.
Next week against Michigan State, that's his week.
Yes, yep. But Brett Hundley didn't look that good against Virginia. Part of that was the offensive line just didn't communicate at all in that game. But Todd Gurley at Georgia, he had a whale of a day, returning kicks, and finally Georgia got smart in the second half and said, hey, let's run this guy a little bit more.
The opposite of what Wisconsin did in the second half.
Exactly.
I would say we're looking at 6-0 Alabama versus 7-0 A&M here in the middle of October. 2 top 10 teams, maybe 2 top 5 teams. I think that's on the horizon here. A&M, they really don't play anybody until then.
I would agree. Some people think Mississippi State and Ole Miss will be good, and A&M has to play those. I'm not jumping on the Mississippi or Mississippi State bandwagon until either one of those teams beats somebody that's good.
How about Ole Miss?
They've been saying about this.
In the first half.
They've been saying about it for Mississippi State for 3 years. I think Dan Mullen's a good coach. They'll win to beat anybody that's really good, though.
Yeah, Ole Miss, Boise State first half. Equally difficult to watch. Not good. Not good whatsoever. Alabama, they had more than enough trouble with a 4-win West Virginia team from last year. 33-23.
West Virginia team that lost to Kansas.
Very unimpressive. Alabama has a black quarterback. A good thing I was sitting down when I saw that. That stunned me. Just nothing to worry about here if you're Alabama. They've lost 2 in a row, albeit to 2 very good teams. But West Virginia, not a lot expected. Is West Virginia better, or does this really just not matter a whole lot? They did win. So.
I think West Virginia might end up being okay, but I think more of it, I would agree that I don't think it's that big of a deal for Alabama. They're so loaded with talent. They're going to win at least 9 games because they're just so much more talented. They're replacing some guys on offense. They'll get better as the year goes. I mean, some people are thinking that Alabama will still be plenty good this year. I mean, they might not be in the playoffs or win the SEC, but they're still going to win probably 10 regular season games.
Well, and kind of like with LSU in the first half, slow start against Wisconsin. Alabama's getting used to a new quarterback, new offensive coordinator in Lane Kiffin. And give credit to West Virginia because they are a better team than they were last year. I think they'll be better this year come season's end. But Alabama just had to get through the growing pains a little bit in that first game, and nothing to worry about there. They'll still be competing for the West in the SEC championship.
I know last year West Virginia upset 11th ranked Oklahoma State, who went on to have a great year too. So maybe West Virginia isn't that good. This is just their one game of the year that they're going to play much better than anybody thought too.
Clemson, Georgia got out to a very good start, very entertaining first half, 6 touchdowns scored between them. Not a lot of action in that third quarter, then all of a sudden all hell broke loose. You had Chubb, you had Gurley going nuts. They put 3 touchdowns on the board in the span of 3 minutes. Georgia, Traxler's Georgia squad looked awfully good. Clemson, not the best showing there in the second half. But Gurley, nearly 200 yards and those 3 touchdowns. They got a big one versus South Carolina in 2 weeks. Any change in expectations in that game, considering what Georgia and South Carolina did this past week?
I think
South Carolina's going to have
change that. The only change I've got is that instead of thinking South Carolina was going to win, I'm now leaning towards Georgia. I think South Carolina will play better. I don't think they're going to give up 50 points or whatever another time. I think this will be kind of a classic low-scoring SEC game, kind of like they are a lot of the time. But I think Georgia's going to win now. They can throw their cannon fodder of running backs at the line of scrimmage and you end up with 300 rushing yards. And you get $150 passing, score 24 points, and win.
Is it in Athens or Columbia?
Let's take a peek.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I can look too.
It is in South Carolina.
Okay, well, then I give South Carolina still a chance in that game. But if they can't stop A&M's offense, Todd Gurley's going to run right through them. So they're going to have to do something.
Well, they run a completely different offense than what A&M runs.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying South Carolina is going to be lights out against Georgia. I mean, I think Georgia's still going to get yards. Don't get me wrong, and play well.
Bring back
but they're not going to throw it 60 times.
No, bring back Jadeveon though.
Auburn. I mean, Arkansas. They haven't been good in a couple of years. Ever since their coach got in that accident and started screwing around with people in the athletic department. If you want to see him, he'll be playing Miami tonight. So go Coach Petrino. But 45-21 win over Arkansas. The retained by the rushing game. Another almost 50 carries, 302 yards. Very entertaining to watch Auburn play. And their offense. We've mentioned their hell in a handbasket of a schedule here with LSU and Alabama. But Jeremy Johnson looked pretty good. Nick Marshall did fine when he came in the second half. Auburn, could they outscore somebody like an Alabama or an LSU again? Is their defense? Their defense isn't very good. Do they have enough offensively to take down those two teams in the West?
I think they have enough to take down Alabama. I'm not sure about LSU. I think LSU's defense is better than Alabama's, but that's just my thought. So I think they would be able to have more success against Alabama's defense. And I don't like Alabama's offense as much, but I like it a little bit more over LSU. So give me LSU's defense over Alabama, but give me Alabama's offense over LSU. So to bring it twofold here, I really don't know.
It all evens out in the end. Very good.
I think I would kind of stick with what I was saying last week. Auburn's defense, their offense is good enough that they could beat anybody. But like you said, their defense, they could give up, 30 or 40 points too. Their offense will give them a chance to beat any of the teams you mentioned. But like you said, with their schedule, games, just because it's a brutal schedule that they play.
We had a couple people not on the show this week. Mr. Schottenkirk, I believe Mr. Traxler joined him in really liking the Bruins of UCLA so much to make the playoff. Brett Hundley, you look at the numbers, okay, did not have a touchdown, 242 yards. The offensive line was horrid, as was mentioned by Mr. Stacken. Thank God Virginia is Virginia, and they had those 3 touchdowns defensively in the second quarter in pretty quick order. Although Virginia's offense outscores UCLA 20-7. However, Virginia, they still lose by 8 points. This was not good. Not good.
It was.
Virginia's going to be one of the worst teams all year.
I don't know. Colorado's pretty bad, aren't they?
They're bad, but Virginia's been bad. They've been bad for a long time. I mean, UCLA, is this similar to, Alabama obviously looked more impressive against West Virginia, but is this a thing where you say, well, first game, whatever, get it out of your system? Because I heard on the broadcast UCLA's got, I believe, the toughest schedule in the country, and I said last week at the preview show that's why I don't think they even win their division, because their schedule's so goddamn tough. They do host Stanford, they do host Oregon, but I just think those two teams are better no matter where the game is played at, and I think they obviously, you beating USC would help winning that division, but I think USC will beat UCLA. So how do you sum up UCLA's chances here one weekend?
Okay, I'm just going to offer a suggestion here, but it is a West Coast team playing a noon Eastern game. I was just going to say, I think they were sleepwalking through most of it, to be honest with you. I don't think they were completely with it. Maybe they thought they would go into Charlottesville and take down the Virginia, but it's noon local for them, but their bodies are still at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So I'm just going to say they weren't quite as sharp as what they needed to be, and I'm not overly concerned. but give me a couple weeks, and if this pattern continues, then I'll change course.
Charlie had mentioned the time difference point during the game there.
To me, the time difference, I mean, I think it means something, but I think after a quarter or a quarter and a half or so, you got to start playing better then. So I'd say, for the first quarter, I would, I'll give them a break on that. To me, the most concerning thing was that the UCLA's biggest problem last year was their offensive line. They had 5 starters back. They were all really young last year. They were supposed to be more experienced and play better instead of like 2 freshmen and 3 sophomores. They're juniors and sophomores with experience, and it looks like they're still really bad. And their problem last year was whenever they played teams with a good defensive line or a good defense, they struggled. So I'm kind of feeling like UCLA is going to be about as good as they were last year. They'll win 8 or 9 or 10 games and be really good and look fantastic at times. They're not going to be able to do anything against teams with a good pass rush because they'll live in the backfield. And Hundley, you can't play quarterback if you only have a second and a half or 2 seconds to throw it on every down.
Sports Lounge Navy. I was all in on Navy. It was looking goddamn good there for about 2.5 hours for Navy. Man, they were looking good against Ohio State. The defense keeping them in check. Or JT Barrett. Couldn't quite get it there. They turned it on there in the last 10 minutes of that game to win 34-17. So Ohio State, they'll play their cupcake of the non-conference schedule the rest of the way. Navy had 11 different guys run as they do. 63 carries, 370 yards. UCLA and Virginia, because I didn't think UCLA was, a top 10 team at the end of the year. I don't think they will be. So I was interested to see how they would do on the road. And obviously, Navy, with the worst schedule that I've seen of anybody, if they could have gotten past Ohio State, I think they could have made some noise, winning 11, 12 games. So those are my 2 early games that I really enjoyed. Have you ever had more fun watching a Navy game than you did there on Saturday?
I've watched a few Navy games before, and some of them were fun to watch, but that was the most fun I'd had, and I would agree with you that I went all in on Navy. And to their schedule, the only one I've seen that's worst is Marshall's. Look at Marshall's later, and you'll feel like throwing up.
Like they don't even have that one game where like this could be that hiccup for Marshall. It's like clear sailing, 13-0, send them.
Everyone's a MAC or a Sun Belt school that they play. And then, but with Navy, the thing that kind of was unfortunate for them is if they were ever going to beat Ohio State, this was going to be the game to do it. Where Ohio State, with Braxton hurt, they had a new quarterback, a new running back, 4 new offensive linemen. We knew Ohio State's defense would probably be good. They gave up more rushing yards than I think most people thought they would. Certainly, Navy can't throw it at all, though. But they could hold. The thought was they could hold Ohio State to few enough points that they could get to 24 and win 24-21 or something like that. For the most part, I think their defense did the job pretty well. For the most part, their offense had a few hiccups, and like you said, Kriens, it was pretty entertaining. And then a couple of long passes by Ohio State, and then you could just feel the deflation of Navy, and it was just like, oh no, you sunk their battleship. It's over.
Very, very nice reference. I think it changed on that fumble that Ohio State turned in for a touchdown. If Navy had been able to drive down the field a little more, they would have possibly scored a touchdown, get up by 2 touchdowns, 2 scores. It really put Ohio State back on their heels. I think that play really changed the complexion and the momentum in the game.
We're still rooting for Navy. I think they can probably the rest of the way here, undefeated, if not win or lose 1 game, maybe to Notre Dame. Down the road, see how good Notre Dame ends up being. So, and the other team, as we mentioned, South Carolina, it doesn't really affect. It's a conference loss, but honestly, it all comes down to that Georgia game. I would probably not expect Georgia to go undefeated during conference play. So if South Carolina can get the tiebreaker with Georgia, that should bode well for them. So went on a limb there with Navy. Didn't work out, but entertaining nonetheless. Anything else from the college football weekend here? LSU, Wisconsin, we touched on that. anything in that game surprise you? Were you surprised Wisconsin? They really they dominated the first 3 quarters of that game. I think that was a little surprising to me.
Yeah, it was.
It was to me too. Or go ahead.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Or I was just going to say, I thought that LSU would be able to run much better early on against a Wisconsin defense that I think, if I remember right, had a brand new front 7 and only like 2 starters back, period, on defense. LSU with 4 returning offensive linemen and a whole bunch of talented running backs. I thought they would be able to. I kind of thought LSU was going to run like Georgia ran against Clemson. And Wisconsin played much better defense than I thought. But, like we mentioned earlier, Wisconsin couldn't throw it, and eventually LSU got back in the game and said, we're going to force you to throw it, and Wisconsin could not do that.
Well, LSU didn't throw it very well either, but they made the big completions late in the game. I was going to blame College Game Day because earlier in the show they said that Wisconsin was 0-8 in their last 7, or they're 0-8 in their last 8 games decided by 7 points or less. And I really thought they were going to put the kibosh on that curse, and I was going to be very upset with College Game Day and Chris Fowler, but glad LSU survived, move on. They're my pick, they're Travis's pick to win all this year, so they need every win. I don't care about the Badgers. See you later.
A lot of Wisconsin hostility in the lounge here today. We heard some quite vulgar language off air before the show started by Mr. Traxler. So Wisconsin, they lose. Both of those teams last week I picked to be in the playoff. Wisconsin, they got to run the table here, beat a Michigan State in the title game. I think that would be good enough, I think, to make the 14 playoff with a close loss to LSU. And LSU, I think they can still lose a game along the way. Obviously needed to win this one to make the playoff. So they can still lose a game, still win their division, win the SEC, make the playoff. So I still have that slim hope of a dream alive. What were your thoughts, Mr. Stack? And you saw your favorite wrestler there, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Him and Lee Corso got quite intoxicated there. I missed it. I didn't see it. I have not seen it yet. I've seen pictures of it. But I know you jumped out of your chair and started doing crotch chops like crazy.
I did. I didn't catch who it was at first, and then when I looked at it, I said, that looks like it's Stone Cold. And then they put it on there for his pick. I can't remember what game they were doing. I was like, you know what? I guess I know more about wrestling than I thought, and I thought it immediately. So I had to say Stone Cold. It was very good. He and Corso had a frosty one, and I think after hanging out with Lee Corso, he definitely needed another 12-pack.
Wow. Did you see that?
I watched the last. I saw like the last 5 minutes of College Game Day. I woke up earlier than I normally do because I work kind of late on Fridays, but I woke up like a little kid on Christmas morning, all excited. But I saw the last 5 minutes of it, and this didn't work out this way. The only way it could have been perfect for me would have been if Stone Cold would have picked Oklahoma State and Lee Corso could have jumped up and said, "Forget about it," and done this to Stone Cold Steve Austin. That would have made it perfect, but that did not happen. They both picked Florida State to win.
So much possibility there. All lost, which is a shame.
And then Stone Cold did not give Lee Corso a stunner, sort of like how Bill Murray threw him to the ground in a way that was kind of awkward. I think everyone felt awkward and nervous that one of those two guys might end up getting hurt for real, messing around.
They got games tonight, later today. Final week of the NFL off-season here, no games on Sunday. Do you think the college football, do you think they could take more advantage, better advantage of this Sunday without the NFL? There's really not a great game on. They had so many, intriguing matchups, maybe move a Florida State, Oklahoma State, or an LSU, Wisconsin. Instead of having them at the same time, move one of them to Sunday. Is that something you'd like to see? The college football do move more games to Sunday, the opening weekend.
They do it sometimes, I know, but this year, tonight Baylor and SMU play, and that's not a great game, but one of them's good. And I know tomorrow night Miami and Louisville play, but I agree 100%. there were a fair amount of good games yesterday, and it's like, maybe have Central Florida and Penn State play at 11 in the morning on Sunday instead of at 7 a.m. Saturday, so nobody watched it, or of the big night games. I think of Florida State and Oklahoma State, or even Alabama, West Virginia, or what was the other one? LSU and Wisconsin.
Clemson, Georgia was good.
That one. Yeah, one of those I would have played tonight, and I would have considered playing another one on Monday night, just so that way. I mean, they obviously do this during the season. That's why they started playing those Thursday night games, because they said, oh, let's not compete with 80 other games on Saturday. Let's get our own special one. I'm surprised there were not more teams doing this today and tomorrow.
I think it's because it's a holiday weekend. I mean, everyone, when you think college football, you say Saturday. When you talk NFL, you say Sunday. And with it being Labor Day weekend, I think they just felt that they probably wouldn't get the ratings, or the people wouldn't get there as much, the students and everything, So, yeah, you would like to see them take advantage a little bit more. I thought they had a lot of good games bunched up together, especially in the night session with Florida State, Oklahoma State, LSU, Wisconsin, and Clemson, Georgia, and USD, Oregon. That was a good one too.
That was close there for about 5 minutes. That was nice.
Yes, yeah. So, you'd like to see it, but I can understand with it being a holiday weekend, with them not pushing the Sunday as much because of ratings.
They always did that. They tried to do that Florida State-Miami deal on Monday for a couple of years, and that was after Miami's run, and Florida State was in their period where they weren't all that great. So they tried something there. And now, really, they got Miami and Louisville on Monday. So I say take full advantage if you're going to have, 6, 7 intriguing matchups like they did yesterday. Spread those suckers out on Sunday and Monday night, because you're not going to do it, not going to be able to do it during the season. So
I remember the biggest problem with those Florida State-Miami games, too, is they were always both loaded on defense.
Low scoring. Very bad.
Figured things out yet on offense. It would always be like 14-12 with a combined 380 yards of total offense, and it was just brutal to watch at times.
Not really much to speak of for previews next week. You got Michigan at Notre Dame next Sunday or Saturday night. So if you're into that, see how that comes about. The big game, obviously, next week is Michigan State at Oregon on Fox here at, I believe, 5:30. An odd start time there out west. And you got USC and Stanford. So, really, those West Coast games here next week, Michigan State, Oregon. Michigan State, if they want to make me a believer, I'll jump on the bandwagon here if they can take down Oregon. I don't see that happening, though. Hopefully it's a good game.
Yeah, I'd just like to see Oregon.
I think it's an interesting game because I could see it go numerous ways. I could see Oregon winning by 30. I could see Michigan State winning like how Stanford beats Oregon in a low-scoring game. And to me, it's usually with games you can see like, well, this is probably going to happen, but I hope it's this that happens. I don't have a clue what's going to happen with Michigan State and Oregon, and I'm just intrigued to see how both teams look with their extremely contrasting styles.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a very intriguing game. It's obviously the best game of the weekend. But I think Oregon's speed is ultimately going to wear Michigan State out, and they will win, I'll say, by probably close. I don't know. I'll say they win by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. You got USC, Stanford. I got USC in a bit of an upset, winning their division of the Pac-12. So it would be nice to win this game at Stanford. USC, new quarterback. The offense looked pretty good against Fresno State. Not that Fresno State's anything special, but USC, Stanford. Any possibility here for the upset? Charlie.
I think it'll be a low-scoring game. I also picked USC to win the South. Ultimately, I think they will. I think not racist Steve Sarkisian is a pretty good coach.
Nice.
I think they lose to Stanford, but I think they end up winning 9 or 10 regular season games, and not racist Steve Sarkisian gets to the Pac-12 title game.
I put a motion to the group here. If you reference Steve Sarkisian, that's how you address him. Non-racist Steve Sarkisian.
Aye.
There you go.
I agree. Three quick things on Steve Sarkisian. He's so not racist, like the one guy said he was, with no evidence of it. He's so not racist that he switched their uniforms from colored and white to home and away. That's how not racist he is. On a recent trip to China, he refused to go on the trip through the Yellow River because he thought it would be negative towards the Asian community at Southern California. He's also so not racist that when someone told him about Urban Outfitters, he thought that it was a place where city slickers buy clothing apparel. That's how not racist Steve Sarkisian is.
It's very well done. Facts. Very nice. I would assume this is this week's Charlie Hildebrand's little very entertaining deal.
Yep.
2 for 2. 2 for 2 on the.
I don't know if I'll do it every week, but I've done it the first 2, and I've liked the first 2 so far.
Something always comes up. Something always comes up. Well, I mean, you look at the 11 o'clock kickoffs here. There's nothing next week. There is nothing. So I don't know. You got Oklahoma at Tulsa. Maybe Tulsa gives Oklahoma a bit of a scare here. But the Florida Atlantic at Alabama, that should be tremendous. Kansas State at Iowa State could not give a shit either way about that. So early there is nothing going on early next Saturday. But a great game Saturday night. So
I feel pretty bad for Florida Atlantic. After giving up 55 and 780 yards to Nebraska and Lincoln, they've got to now play Alabama the very next week in Tuscaloosa.
Coming off a week where I was pleased with their performance against West Virginia. So
yeah,
I'm sure they would probably like to put the boots to the Owls. So. Stackin's NFL preview, we went through it here with Mr. Koob and Mr. Traxler. We all had 4 different teams winning the Super Bowl, which I found pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Super Bowl picks start there, and then kind of expound out.
Sure.
Who do you like to win the entire deal? 5-6 months away.
I'm feeling less confident about this pick in spite of the recent events from the last couple of weeks, but I am picking Denver to win the Super Bowl in a rematch against Seattle.
What happened? Was it Wes Welker, or what happened?
Wes Welker, it's even Matt Prater to a certain extent. Not that it's just saying that they can't get one of their kickers to do good because they have 3 of their first 4 games at home. So thin air, it should help whoever they bring in for their kicking. But I think Wes Welker's injury does scare me a little bit because it is just one less weapon. And the fact that they only have Monty Ball, that also to me, they just don't have that depth in the back. If he were to go down, it would force Peyton Manning to do it all on his own. Not saying he can't. He's done it before. He can do it again. But that defense is so much improved. Getting those guys, the T.J. Ward safety from Cleveland, they get Aqib Talib. They get DeMarcus Ware. Von Miller coming back if he can stay healthy. I love that defense. And I think Denver just will run through the AFC like a warm knife through butter.
I have toast from occasion to occasion. I butter my pan every morning for the eggs using a spatula.
Yeah.
But the warm knives, I mean, you put them in the drawer, they're fairly room temperature. Not cold, not warm. Where do the warm knives? How do you get a knife warm? Who is warming
I think it's
up
easier
their
just
knives?
to warm the butter than warm the knife.
Well, this is true. But you know what? Sometimes the heat just gets to those knives, so you better use it. Bottom line, they're gonna go through the AFC very easily. I think Seattle will make a repeat appearance in the Super Bowl. I don't see any reason to doubt their offense. I think a full year with Percy Harvin is going to be very good for them.
Can he stay healthy?
Yeah, I think he can. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt in this one.
Will he stay healthy?
I'm not 100%. I'm not willing to put money on that. But I'm going to say they will make it. The Seahawks will play the Saints in the NFC Championship game. The Broncos will play the Patriots because there's no one else in the AFC that is worth mentioning getting there. The other playoff teams that I have, I'll start in the AFC. I like the Bengals to repeat as the AFC North winners. I like the Colts in the South, so 3-4 in that respect. And then the 2 wild cards, I'll give the Chargers, the 5th seed at 9-7, and the Baltimore Ravens at 8-8 will be the 6th seed in the playoffs. On the NFC side, I like Green Bay to win the North. I like the Eagles to win the NFC East by default because no one else is worth a darn in that division. They're the NFC least, I would say. And I will take the Saints to win the South with the Bears, and I'm going to say the Falcons as wild cards, 5 and 6. I'm not confident on Atlanta. I don't know if Julio Jones can stay healthy for a full season. Steven Jackson used last year, and with the issues going on in San Francisco right now, I think they and Arizona will beat each other up. I think St. Louis will kind of get in there. And remember, the NFC West plays the AFC West this year, so I think you're going to see some losses on both sides there. But I will go Chicago and Atlanta making the NFC wild card.
You said in the AFC North you had Cincinnati winning, right?
Cincinnati, up with Baltimore as the wild card. I don't have any faith in Pittsburgh, and Cleveland, they have major issues.
I just said that because, obviously Cincinnati won it last year, and they've certainly got enough talent to do it again, but I believe you were the only one that picked the Bengals. I think the rest of us picked the Steelers or the Ravens to win the AFC North.
I just don't know who Ben Roethlisberger is going to throw to. Marcus Wheaton, I hear he's a guy that's going to get some consideration. Antonio Brown's very good. You have the pot smokers in the backfield, so that'll be good. So maybe they'll puff some smoke and make the opposing defense not see him at all. I don't know. With Baltimore, I just don't know if they can be a completely pass-happy team because I don't know if I trust Bernard Pierce in the backfield and Ray Rice. Who knows what's going on with him? I don't know where his career is at right now. It definitely seems like it's on the decline. But just the way that they do things on defense, and I do still have a little faith in Joe Flacco, I will give them the benefit of the doubt that they can secure a playoff spot in a very weak AFC.
Yeah, it's reasonable to pick the Bengals to win. The only reason I didn't is because I think it's tough to win a division 3 years in a row. I mean, I was basing it off nothing other than that.
They do have 2 new coordinators, so.
Yes, and that's why I'm a little leery, but I just don't see anyone else in the AFC North or in that division that's made leaps and bounds a right decision. I would be very tempted to pick Cleveland if Josh Gordon was playing. Because
I think the AFC North is the division I know the least about based off like how they've played recently and guys they have. If you were going to give me like trivia breakdown and ask questions, the AFC North I feel like I would by far do the worst with as a division.
Well, here's something I learned about Pittsburgh, just pulling this page up. Antonio Brown, pretty good receiver. He's their number 1. This Marcus Wheaton, who I did not hear about 2 minutes ago before Stacken mentioned his name, he's their number 2, I guess. They do have Darius Hayward-Bay, who's not very good.
Woo!
They also
he
have,
is fast, though.
He is. They do have Heath Miller, who seems like he's been around since the turn of the century. And then they do have Lance Moore from the Saints. So that Lance Moore.
Okay,
probably their 3rd best receiver here.
I knew he left. I did not. He left New Orleans. I forgot that he went to Pittsburgh. So that will certainly help Big Ben.
And Le'Veon Bell, 3.5 yards per carry last year, not all that great. Did have 45 catches in 13 games, so maybe he'll be a guy that can get 350 carries, get 1,300 yards. Did have 8 touchdowns. I drafted him in the fantasy draft. He fell. He was not getting suspended. I don't know if people were leery of him possibly missing games, but he fell probably a round or 2 lower than he should have. So I picked him up and filled my 3 running back positions right away. What conference would you say is stronger, Mr. Stacken?
It's the NFC, and it's not even close. In all honesty, I think the Vikings could be the worst team in the NFC this year. They're the kind of the wild card. I don't know how they're going to play. Their first 6 games are very difficult, but they are better than I would say almost half the teams in the AFC. But by virtue of the conference they play in, their record's not going to indicate that. So I'll say that the NFC is so much stronger than the AFC, it's not even close.
I think we all agree the NFC is stronger. I think Stacken's the most adamant about it, and to the largest degree, though.
So you're saying it's like the West and the East in the NBA, where the Minnesota Timberwolves are like the 10th or 11th best team in the West, but in the East they'd be like the 6th seed.
Yep, based on what I've seen, how the Vikings have looked this offseason and the preseason, I would put them in the playoffs in the AFC.
What's the floor and the ceiling for the Vikings?
The floor, I think it's 4-12 would be the floor. I think the ceiling's 9-7.
I went 6-10, 8-8.
And I say that just not because of the talent that they have and the system that they have in place. I look at it more in terms of their schedule, the teams they have on it.
I remember disagreeing about their schedule here a few years ago with you about. I think you thought it was fairly more difficult. I thought it was very winnable. Certain games during one of their terrible years where they won 4 or 5 games, whatever. But I look at that St. Louis game this week. I expect them to win that. I expect them to win. New England at home, New Orleans. That's a couple losses. Atlanta at home. I certainly believe that's winnable. Could go either way. But once you get past Green Bay, Week 5, I think you've got 4 games that you can all win. And if you go less than 3-1 in these games, I think that's a poor effort. You host Detroit, that's a win. You go on the road to. They own Detroit at home. I think they've lost once or twice in the past, probably 15 years against Detroit at home. They go to Buffalo and at Tampa Bay. I know Josh McCown is great, but goddamn, you got to win at Buffalo. If you're a good team, you win at Tampa Bay. Then you host Washington. Then you have your bye. Let me see a 4-4 record in the bye, and then we can start talking.
I agree. I don't have a lot of faith that they can stop a healthy Atlanta team or a healthy Detroit team. I think this is the year that Detroit really puts together a great game. They don't have to play in the Metrodome, so maybe that's the house of horrors for the Lions, if you will.
A dome team playing in another dome stadium on the road. They can't play it. They just can't do it.
They just don't have a lot of success there. But
it could be because they're not any good.
They're better, though, this year. I think Jim Caldwell will be just fine. I think I don't know. I'm buying into the Lions a little more this year, but still not making the playoffs. And I think the Vikings will be 1-5 in their first 6 games, and then somehow rally to win 8 of their final 10. 9-7.
To me, the Lions are like the biggest in terms of how good or bad I could see them being. You could convince me the Lions will go 3-13. You could convince me they'll go 10-6 before playing a game. I think I like their talent level. I think they got a lot of players that are good. They just don't play well enough and often enough. And it's been that way for a long time.
At the worst, I see 2-4. I think they beat Detroit and they beat St. Louis. They lose at New Orleans. They probably lose at Green Bay. Probably a loss there at home against New England, but you never know. And Atlanta, I think Atlanta at home is a bit of a toss-up, so no worse than 2-4. 3-3 would be good by me. So
I agree. I think if they get to 500, they're a legit shot to. They're a threat for a wild card.
I said that Cordell Patterson, I think by the end of this year, he'll be a top 5 receiver. And
Agreed.
I think in 2 years, I think you can make the case, Calvin Johnson included, that Cordell Patterson is, as good as any receiver there. Hope he continues to kick off or return the kickoffs, average 32 yards a kickoff. Unbelievable field position for the Vikings. Hopefully they take advantage of that. And I said, if it was my choice, and I don't know why it's not my choice, but it's not, I'd give him 5 carries every game out of the backfield somehow.
I agree, or at least line him up in the backfield a half dozen times and just make the opposing defenses bring someone else in and have a spy on him. Even if you fake it to him, that alone could help sell Kyle Rudolph over the middle, or Greg Jennings to do a little curl route or a post route, and just open up the field so much more. I agree. Get him a few carries a game, but at least throw him in the backfield a half dozen times. Put him and AP back there, you're golden.
Do you want him to truly line up in the backfield, or are you okay with him doing the Wisconsin jet sweep, coming around and hand faking it to him like that?
I'd say you try and put him in motion, do a jet sweep once or twice a game, but honestly, put him in the backfield a half dozen times.
I just want the ball in his hands, no matter how it gets there. Direct snap it to him, reverses, straight, normal.
Without the headaches, literally and figuratively.
Yes, Percy Harvin, but not injury prone, so that's good to see. We did forget to make our MVP picks.
It's Peyton.
Similar to how the Heisman, we forgot that last week. You think it's Peyton Manning again?
Yep.
I'll hopefully I don't steal Hildebrandt's thunder here. I'll go Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers too. I think Peyton could still have a good year, but historically, guys don't break records and have career years and then play fantastic the next year. I think he'll still be good. He'll probably throw. I could be wrong. My guess is Peyton will probably go for about 4,000 yards with 35 touchdowns and 17 picks or something like that. He'll play pretty well, but it won't be as good. And I think Rodgers will play kind of like he did in the playoffs in 2010. But if he gets hurt in Week 4, then it's all for naught.
I do think, just going on Denver for a moment, I think Emmanuel Sanders is a better wide receiver than Eric Decker, and I think he will help.
I picked him in the draft, so he better do.
Sanders be a major impact player with however long Wes Welker is out of the lineup.
We had the Sports Lounge Fantasy Draft. I believe Marshawn Lynch was your first pick.
Yeah.
Romo and Carson Palmer are your quarterbacks. Monty Ball, Steven Jackson, running backs. Jordy Nelson, Antonio Brown at receiver. Jordan Cameron with Cleveland showed some good things last year. You got Mo Jones-Drew as your backup. We'll see how he does in Oakland. Mike Wallace on the bench there, Riley Cooper. Brandon Cook, so you're fairly deep at receiver. Were you pleased with your team here?
I was not. I was going to take back, and I somehow selected Jordy Nelson for me, so I was not really pleased with it. I can't. It was like Monty Ball or Adrian Ellington or Giovanni Bernard. One of the three were out there.
I like Jordy Nelson. I think he'll do. I think he'll have a great year.
I hope he stays healthy and doesn't have a hamstring issue like he had last year. Overall, it's good. I don't know why Tony Romo was going so late in rounds. The Cowboys' defense is going to stink this year. They're absolutely going to suck. So he's going to have to throw it because Lord knows they don't know how to use DeMarco Murray in the run game. So I think that's good. And Carson Palmer, he's going to have to do. But he's got Michael Floyd. He's got Larry Fitzgerald. He can throw some Ellington, and I think it'll work out.
I would say the back issue with Romo would be the.
I don't know if I'm going to repeat.
You know if you're going to. You are the champion, first-year champ. So you did. I don't know if you drew the short end of the stick there with the last pick in the first round. So obviously, just like the NFL, we want to spread the wealth around here. We don't want repeat champs, so we stick you at the end of the line.
I like the pick. I don't think I ended up being the last pick though. I think it was 6th or 7th.
You were 10th. You were 10th.
Is it really?
I think. I don't know. That's the way. I'm not sure. Well, you got Marshawn Lynch, so obviously you probably weren't, were you? Because I won't think you.
No, I wouldn't think so.
Well, that's on Traxler there since he runs the league.
I read that too, and I was like, I don't think I got the 10th pick.
You were under a lot of criticism for a late round selection of one Matt Castle. Would you care to explain yourself?
I needed a quarterback, and I didn't want to take Eli.
Teddy Bridgewater. Would you consider Teddy Bridgewater?
I would think of Bridgewater, but I'm hoping that the Vikings are playing well enough where Castle is still the starter at that point. And if starter, I just need him for 2 weeks, and he'll be just fine in that offense. So I'm taking Castle. By the way, one of the team names in one of my other leagues is Storming the Castle. So.
Storming the Castle.
Yeah.
Very good.
So.
And you go with Parting the Interception.
Yes.
With the PTI and interception, capitalized is always a long-standing tradition.
Yes.
Copyrighted, trademarked for Nathan Stacken. So a 10-team league. If you don't make the playoffs, your team sucks. 8 teams make it. So everybody pretty much gets a chance. So that's the NFL preview and a solid first week of the college football season. How do you feel your team did here in the college pick'em? You didn't make it. Well, that's great.
That was terrible. I apologize for that. I would have been perfect too.
You
I
would
was
have taken
pretty disappointed. I only got the 1 and the 2 point games wrong, and I'm only in like the 70th percentile nationally. I only missed on 3 points, and it's like, nope, sorry. You're not good enough. And I was like, how am I not like 94th right now?
Pretty much the favorites won. The one game, Penn State UCF, could go either way. And then Cal upset Northwestern. I think that's where a lot of people got wrong. Drew Alman, noted college football expert, he is tied with Dan Beck. They both missed 1 game apiece at 1 point. Marcus Traxler is third. He missed 2 points. Defending champ David Schottenkirk, bold statements for Schottenkirk, calling everybody out, saying he will repeat, no doubts, no ifs, ands, or asses about it. He will repeat. And I'm at 51 points there. And,
I'll make a comeback.
We'll make a comeback. Mr. Hildebrand there, tied with Schottenkirk. So, did you even? Yeah, you're gonna make a comeback here. Okay, you can, if you do, you can probably beat Drew because he'll miss a week. I'm sure 1 or 2 other people will drop out.
Yep. And I'll make sure to do the NFL pick'em this week when we do it. But
we'll set that up against the spread. Your favorite against the spread.
That onus is on me. It's on me for that.
I think we kind of look to Mr. Hildebrand to put the do you feel the pressure to knock off Schottenkirk since you are the college football guy? Is it on your shoulders? Do you feel that?
It's on my shoulders, but when you're this talented, you just don't feel pressure all the time.
Just brush it off. There you go.
Oh, he's the Nick Saban.
It's about the process.
I'm like a vacuum.
That's right.
I'm the vacuum that just eliminates the pressure everywhere else. It's gone, so I don't have it.
Charlie Hildebrand, the human vacuum. Nathan Stacken joining us for the NFL preview. We appreciated Marcus Traxler joining us, and Shane Koob entertaining as always. So next week, the first time we have done a show, Google Hangout, during the NFL season. So we will see how that will work. So for Koob, for Traxler, for Hildebrand, for Mr. Stacken, I'm Travis Kriens. This has been the 81st edition of the Sports Lounge Hangout. And as Marcus Traxler would say, next week we'll do it again inside the Sports Lounge.